Hello everyone, this is Mr. Lawback. In this video, I want to go over President George Washington's foreign policy challenges. In this video, we will go over the French Revolution and the United States, Washington's Proclamation of Neutrality in 1793, Citizen Edmond Guiney controversy. He was a French ambassador to the United States, the Jay Treaty of 1794 with Britain, and the Pinckney Treaty with Spain of 1795. Washington's first term as president from 1789 to 1793 coincided with the outbreak of revolution in France, an event that would touch off a series of wars between the French Republic and the monarchies of Europe. Washington's entire 8 years as president, as well as the 4 years of his successor, John Adams, were taken up with the question of whether the U.S. give its support to France or France's enemy, Britain, or neither side. So the big question was, who should the U.S. support in the Great Britain versus France conflict? The U.S. and the French Revolution. Americans generally supported the French people's aspirations to establish a republic, but many were also horrified by the reports of mob hysteria and mass executions, which were covered in great detail in American newspapers. To complicate matters, the U.S.-French alliance remained in effect from the Revolutionary War, although it was an alliance with the French monarchy, not with the Revolutionary Republic. Jefferson and his supporters sympathized with the revolutionary cause of the French. They also argued that because Britain was seizing American merchant ships bound for French ports, the United States should join France in its defensive war against Britain. Whether or not the U.S. should join a side in the French Revolution was a polarizing issue in the United States at the time. Washington, however, believed that the young nation was not strong enough to engage in a European war. Resisting public clamor, in 1793 he issued a proclamation of U.S. neutrality in the conflict. Jefferson, his Secretary of State, actually ended up resigning from the cabinet in a disagreement with Washington's policy. This would be a theme and legacy of the Washington presidency, not to get involved in foreign affairs. Citizen Guiney. Objecting to Washington's policy, Citizen Edmond Guiney, the French minister to the United States, broke all types of rules of diplomacy by appealing directly to the American people to support the French cause. So outrageous was his conduct that even Thomas Jefferson, a big pro-French advocate, approved of Washington's request to the French government that they remove Guiney. The French recalled Guiney, but Guiney chose to remain in the United States, where he married and became a U.S. citizen. Jay's Treaty with Great Britain. Washington sent Chief Justice John Jay on a special mission to Britain to talk about two issues. One was Britain's continued occupation of posts in the U.S. western frontier. The other was Britain's offensive practice of searching and seizing American ships and impressing sailors into the British Navy. Impressment is when you force a sailor to serve in your Navy. After a year of negotiations, Jay brought back a treaty in which Britain agreed to evacuate its post, but included nothing about impressment. Narrowly ratified by the Senate by one vote, the unpopular Jay Treaty angered American supporters of France, but it did maintain Washington's policy of neutrality, which kept the United States at peace. Overall, the Jay Treaty was a very controversial topic. So while it kept peace with Great Britain, it did strain relations with France. The Pinckney Treaty with Spain of 1795. Totally unexpected was the effect that the Jay Treaty had on Spain's policy towards its territories in the Americas. Seeing the treaty as a sign that the United States might be drawing closer to Spain's longtime foe, Britain, Spain decided to consolidate its holdings in North America. The Spanish influence in the far west had been strengthened by a series of Catholic missions along the California coast, but they were concerned about their colonies in the southeast portion of North America. Thomas Pinckney, the U.S. minister to Spain, negotiated a treaty with these provisions. Spain opened up the lower Mississippi River and New Orleans to American trade. The right of deposit was granted to Americans so that they could transfer cargoes in New Orleans without paying duties to the Spanish government. Spain accepted the U.S. claim that Florida's northern boundary should be the 31st parallel, not north of that line as Spain had formally insisted. One of the big effects of Pinckney's treaty was that it allowed for more U.S. migration westward towards the Mississippi River, without fear of Spanish attack. Some big takeaways from President George Washington's foreign affairs policy. The French Revolution and the relations between Britain and France were a cloud that would loom over the entire Washington presidency. President Washington also deciding to proclaim neutrality angered many Americans, as many people wanted him to take a stand. The Pinckney Treaty was overall seen as a positive treaty for the United States. Overall, the Jay Treaty was controversial and not really good for the United States, and would actually set the early table for later conflict, which would result in the War of 1812 between the United States and Britain.